Welcome to Go Solo Live.
Don't you mean go solo live? Have you ever been asked why on earth would you travel alone? Go Solo Live not only answers that question, but celebrates life as a midlife solo traveler. This is a safe place for women to come together to reminisce about their travels, encourage others to travel, and to dig into the real lessons learned from these journeys. Now join Jennifer Buchholz with Transform Via Travel as she and her guests share stories of the solo travelers of midlife women.
Hi, everyone. This is Jennifer Buchholz with Transform Via Travel, and you're listening to the next episode of Go Solo Live. Today, we have Terri Levine joining us, and she'll be sharing some of her travel stories. Welcome, Terri.
Thanks for having me, Jennifer. I'm excited to be here.
I'm thrilled to have you. We have only known each other just a few months, and yet once I started to hear some of your solo travel adventures, I really felt like we were kindred spirits. Can you start by telling us how this all got started for you?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And I was reflecting on it today, so I'll just share this first. If you had asked me as a teenager, or even in my maybe early 20s, maybe in mid-20s, would I ever travel alone? I would say no. I didn't even want to rent a car by myself. And I got thrown into business travel. And I realized as I was doing my business travel that I actually enjoyed the time alone, that I was journaling and I was embracing that quiet time. And so I started to add a day or two at the end of each of my business trips just for me, where I would connect with me, where I would go explore and I would tour the cities that I was in and I would just walk. And I thought, this is really good for me. And shortly after that, I said to my husband, love you dearly. I love being with you. And yet I think for me, I need some quiet time, literally on my own to travel. And he was totally, accepting and happy about it. And the first time I did it, when I came back, he saw the change in me. He saw how much more introspective I had been with myself, with what I wanted out of our marriage, out of our life, and the changes I started to make just based on the time alone. And so he's always honored that for the last, I don't know, it's probably 25 years that I've been doing it.
That's fantastic. Too many times I hear women say, I only travel with my husband, or I'm married, so I don't travel alone. And I've just actually had a couple of married guests who've talked about not only how much they need the solo travel, but how supportive their husbands have been through that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I actually then encouraged my husband to do it, right? I said, go. And so the first time he went with a bunch of friends and he came home and I said, trust me, it's not the same. Go by yourself. And it took several years, maybe 5 or 6. And when he finally did it, when he came home, I saw, we won't talk about it because he's that type, shh. But I saw the change in him and I saw that he actually had found more of his own self. And I think every time I travel, the other thing it does, and I think it's really important. Mary Kay Ash said it really well. She was one of my mentors. A man is not a plan. A man is not a plan. And so it reinforces for myself that I am in control of myself. I am in control of my life. I'm, not going to worry the rest of my life. What do I do? God forbid if I don't have my husband, because there's so many things in the world that God forbid could happen. I need to know that I'm a secure, confident, powerful woman. And it reminds me of it every single time I travel solo.
I think that's a fabulous lesson. In some cases, some people feel like when you're traveling solo and you're in a relationship that you must be running from something. And I try to share with them that more often you're just running to yourself. Is that something you might agree with?
I'd say you're definitely running to yourself and you're giving yourself a couple of things. One is the quiet time to hear your own voice. You see, we hear the same messages over and over in our heads at least 50,000 times a day. As my background in clinical psychology, it's one of the things that I know. And we hear the same message over and over and over and over again. And we're in a busy routine life cycle. We don't stop it. When you go and you travel by yourself, you're allowing alone time, quiet time, and you can create some new messages. And the other thing is, when you have really given yourself the time and the space to honor yourself, then you are really getting a much deeper connection to who are you in the world? Not what your mom and dad said, your teachers, not what your friends think, your spouse, your partner. Who really are you? And how do you want to live your life? And you usually get to figure out more about who you are and live a more juicy life.
I love it. I love it. So when you are doing your solo journeys, you said that you first started piggybacking them onto business trips. And that is absolutely one of the baby steps that I encourage for people who are just thinking about dipping their toe in the water and starting some solo travel. Can you share any exciting things that you did when you were just piggybacking that on the end?
Yeah. So one of the first things I was traveling, I always remember this. I was traveling to Boston. I think Boston is just a really cool city, but I'd always gone in and it would, just be business. And then one night I said, well, my meetings are over. It's like 5 o'clock. I'm going to go find an awesome restaurant in Boston and I'm going to treat myself to a phenomenal dinner. So I went and I researched and I found a great restaurant, and I'd never dined, in a really nice restaurant by myself. So at first I thought, I'd better bring something to read or something to do. Then I got comfortable with myself and I just said, I'm going to take in the ambiance. And the waiters were so doting over me. So I kind of was like, oh, I'm a queen here. And then afterwards I said, I'm going to go for a walk around the city. I'm going to really see Boston. I'm going to see it at my pace, at my speed. I'm going to stop where I want. And I started to really realize that I have never done that in life. I've always been with somebody on a trip who said, let's go here, let's do this. And I'd say, okay. Now it was my terms. And then the final thing I did, this all on the same trip, and it's really what opened it up for me, is it was, 11 o'clock at night. And I thought, I'd love to go into a bar and have a cocktail. And I thought, oh gosh, a woman in a bar having a cocktail. Pushed right through that and said, I'm going to do it. I went in and I found this really quaint hotel with the cutest bar with some awesome music. And I sat there for just 2 hours, sipping on one cocktail going, I am really doing what I'm choosing in the moment. And that was a breakthrough.
That is awesome. That's awesome. So you got to dine how you wanted to dine, see the city how you wanted to see the city, enjoy a nightcap in your own space and place. In each of those steps, you're getting a little bit more and more comfortable with the adventure and experience as well as with yourself.
Yeah. And the biggest word that came to me, 2 words came to me because I journal a lot. And I remember the words I wrote that night. One was empowerment. Felt really empowered, like I can do this. And the other thing was confident. I felt so comfortable and confident. It was like, I'm in a bar, I'm by myself, and I'm just enjoying myself. I'm not here to make conversation. I'm not here looking to talk with anyone or do anything. I'm being with me. And I do remember somebody tried to make conversation with me, and I thought, I'm not here for that. And I was polite, and yet I put a barrier up and made it kind of clear, without being rude, that I was there for me. And I just remember walking back to my hotel that night, and, I'm kind of short, but I think I stood a little taller that night.
Well, and the reality is that you can choose to engage or choose not to engage. Either way is completely fine. You have the freedom and the confidence and the empowerment to choose.
Exactly.
One of the things that I love about this idea, and again, in this instance, we're specifically talking about just adding a couple days for yourself after a particular business trip, is you get to look at that same place that you were for work from an entirely different perspective.
That's true.
Absolutely. And when you're traveling with your business people that you're probably in a city with, you're acquiescing to their needs and their terms, because that's the typical thing to do, right? Everybody, when you're in a group, we all share.
Exactly.
But when you're alone, you get to pick your pace, your schedule, what you want to do, and absolutely what you don't want to do.
So that's a good point. I'm going to go there for a second. So my second trip, I was in Rhode Island, and it was a really typical quick business trip for me. It was supposed to be in for 2 days and out. And I said, I'm going to add a day to it. And the first 2 days at the end of my meetings, my group would say, let's do this, let's do that. And I remember thinking, it's been a long day. I don't really feel like doing that, but I went along, right? So I went with the group. The day that I had to myself, I asked myself this question: what do you choose to do? And I remember it was like, wow, like I really get the choice. And I did things that are not typical for me. I went and toured like old houses I'm not even interested in, but something spoke to me about that. And I took my time. And I remember the other thing that I did that day, And so I went, it was a warm day. I went and I got a salad and something to drink, and I found a park and I sat on the grass, and I'm like, these are things I didn't typically do. I hadn't done since I was probably 17. And that the business people I traveled with would have been like, oh no, we don't want to do that. So I began to recognize that I now had the time to make my own choices and to hear my own inner voice about my preferences. And for me, it's just so exciting to know that I get to make those choices in the moment, honoring and respecting myself.
Well, and so often, this is why I really tell people, don't bring a friend, make a friend. Because when we travel, whether it's with colleagues, family, friends, spouses, or loved ones, they have their own expectations and needs, which often is one thing that we often compromise, which is normal again. But when a person is trying to actually go through some personal growth and through that journey of self-discovery, they're poised for change. They're poised to experiment and hopefully to make some mistakes so that they can learn, adapt, and adjust. And even if you bring somebody along who loves you and supports you, you can't fully be in that experience because you do have a concern about them. And they may have a vested interest in you not changing.
So that reminds me of something. I was still in corporate America back at this time, and my girlfriend was going through a divorce, and we said we were going to go to a mind, body, and soul weekend. Now, I was in just about at the end of my career knowing I was going to start my consulting business. So I was in this place of transformation. She's leaving a marriage and a place for transformation. And so the very first day, I wanted to go hear 4 speakers that I knew would help me change my career. She wanted to go hear 4 speakers that she knew were going to help her with her marital decisions. And I'm like, oh, I probably should just go with her, And her vested interest with me was she didn't think it was a good idea that I leave my secure job, So she's like, don't go to those things. It's not going to be. And it was really interesting. And I remember we were at lunch and she had her, agenda and I had mine. And somewhere this voice came out of me that said, I love you, Beth. I honor you. You need to go to what's going to help you in your life. And I just recognized I need to go to what's going to help me. And I have to tell you, it was hard. I thought I destroyed a friendship. I mean, it was a day where she was not happy with me. So when I travel now by myself, there is no agenda. I love to meet friends. I've met some of the most phenomenal people who really have become my friends now. And I'm open to new possibilities and new potential. And I've talked to people from different cultures, and it's fascinating. And you know what? That doesn't happen when I travel with other people. It only happens when I travel by myself.
I agree. And, these folks from our past or our longer term relationships, it's okay that they have a vested interest in us. But the reality is that as anybody goes through a personal change and transformation, those relationships shift and adjust as well.
Yes, they do. Very much.
And those other folks in our lives may feel a little bit out of control of how that's going to happen and what the result is. And that's scary for them as well. But it can't be our responsibility to also take care of them as we're trying to go through that change.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. It's kind of interesting. I was talking to somebody just a couple of days ago, and I was saying, when I quit my job, my husband is just amazing and supportive, but it was really scary. I was walking away from a very large income, president of a national healthcare company, stock options and all this stuff, and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm done. I'm quitting. I'm out. And it's like, and he just said, I have faith in you. I'd already owned a lot of businesses. I know you'll be fine. My father, who lived with us at the time, was like, I don't understand. You're throwing out your college education. And, this is what people work for. You're at the top. I said, Dad, I have to do what's in my best interest. I've tried to live my life doing what you and Mom wanted me to do. So even with my parents, it happened with friends, but even with my dad, my mom was already passed. My dad was nervous. And I was like, I have to do this for me. So I think we have to own our own agendas. I think we have to ask ourselves, what do I really want out of life? Not just what somebody else wants from me. And traveling by yourself gives you that quiet time to ask those questions that you're probably not asking every day.
So when we're traveling by ourselves and we're actually trying to do some introspection and growth, it is different than a couple other types of travel. I have traveled to run away, and that's a different type of travel. You can also travel, of course, for entertainment and enjoyment. And that's not to say that travel doesn't sometimes encompass any or all of those things, but I like to encourage people to have a specific purpose and intention with their travel. Maybe it's related to what they're going to see and experience, or maybe it's just related to what they're trying to work through in their head and their heart. Did you go away with any kind of specific purpose and intention on some of these trips?
Yeah, and one really comes to mind. It was maybe a year and a half ago or so. I was in the midst of making a lot of business decisions, which business partner to work with, which one not to work with, which projects to go forward with, because I had so much on my plate. And everybody's voices, everybody had a big attachment to my outcome, like huge. And I said, I have to just pack up and go. And my husband was like, what are you doing? I said, I have to do this. I need quiet. And my intention was to figure out my best path and not to, very selfishly, not to consider what anybody else thought was the path. And I went to the countryside of North Carolina. It was a little bit cool, and I stopped at a store. I didn't even bring the right clothes. I stopped at a store. I bought warmer clothes, and every single day I would just get up in the morning and say, what feels like the right thing to do? I call that white space, no agenda. But I knew what I was there for. And so some days I would walk for hours and just think, and some days I would just sit on a bench and meditate, or go to a lake that was there and just sit. And all of a sudden, I was planning to be there for 5 days. All of a sudden, in day 2, I was journaling every day, and I read what I journaled, and it was so clear what I didn't want in my life and what I did, and my passion meter went way up. I knew that I had my answers. So I do like to have an intention, and certainly I travel for fun. I travel to see things, and even when I'm doing that, I have an intention. I want to learn the culture. I want to eat the food, whatever it is. I believe in whatever you do it intentionally.
I appreciate that, and I think when you create the space for the information to come to you or from you, it's amazing that it comes to you very quickly.
So I'm laughing because right now I'm in a place in business where I have my own business. I have a business with a business partner, and I have a friend that I've known for years who just is begging me to go into business with him. And I'm like, okay, I need everybody's voices turned off, and I'm actually going away again. And I'm doing it just for that reason. I need to get back connected with me and my voice. And I know that as soon as I get that quiet and I get the time with Terri, I'm going to have my answers. And I can't get my answers in the same environment. I found that out. I'm here in my home, my office, wherever. It's the same old. And then I'm busy with my same stuff. When I'm away, and this is really, really important, I turn off my phone. I turn off my email. I turn off my computer. I don't look at text. If there's an emergency, I tell my husband how to reach me. Other than that, it's me connected to me. And that's how I get my answers.
And that's how you get them so clearly and quickly, because you really aren't letting any other influences weigh on you.
Correct. Absolutely correct.
So that disconnectedness, I'm going to just say out loud that you're a very important person, Miss Terri.
Well,
and
you.
So how do you, there's two sides to this sometimes. How do you cope with being disconnected? Because it's good, and there's also some downsides. And then how do other people cope with you being disconnected? Almost like and who do you think you are that you can just turn it all off? Talk about how you feel about it, as well as like any pushback you've gotten from others.
Oh boy, this is a good one. This goes back to probably could even be 21 years ago. I was pretty new in my coaching and consulting business. And I was working with a client who hadn't been on a vacation in like 10 years. And I was just telling her, you need to go away. You need to shut everything down. And at the same time, sometimes we're coaching someone what we need to hear. At the same time, I remember a few days before that, my husband said, let's just go away for the weekend. I'm like, I can't possibly go. So I'm like, that's interesting. So I started to put up a really firm boundary back then, 20, 21 years ago. And I started to say to anybody in my life, there are times in my life where I need to disconnect. I love you. And I want you to understand, I need to do this for me, and I'll show up better for you, better in business, better as your mentor, better as your wife, better as your aunt, any role that I play. Mm-hmm. And either people have accepted that, or some of my friends have left. They don't like that. The other thing that I've noticed is the people who don't like that, who have problem with it, okay? I can't have them in my life. And I'm being really upfront and transparent, because if I can't take care of myself first, like on the airplane, you get the oxygen mask, I can't take care of you. And I want to take care of my friends and my family. So I have to take care of me first. If my disconnecting, is going to ruin your life, we're probably not meant to be on the journey together.
Absolutely. And of course, the airplane oxygen mask analogy makes sense. And in other cases, when you've passed it to someone else and they're sucking you dry, clearly you need to reclaim some oxygen for yourself. But what I like about what you've just said, Terri, is really about establishing boundaries and then just clearly communicating them and reinforcing them. It's difficult to say, okay, I'm going to be offline, you can't reach me, and then they see you're online. It's an inconsistency, which then it sends a mixed message. So it sounds like not only do you set an expectation, but you truly follow through on it.
Yeah, I think this is something that's very important, and I really want people to breathe this in and get this. You have to decide in your life what's best for you. You have to stop listening to the voices that you hear we all have these. Our parents told us what to do. Clergy told us what to do. Teachers, when we were kids, the kids we were friends with, their parents told us what to do. You've lived your life, if you're a human being, being told who you are, what you should do, right? At some point, you have to say, I'm an adult. I'm claiming my life. I don't care if you're 21, 51, or 81. I just say, wake up. Wake up. Claim your life. And lovingly tell other people, look, this is my life and this is my choice. And I hope you'll honor my choice. And if you can or if you don't, I have to honor my choice. So I think that's a really important message for people to breathe in.
And for women especially, to begin being comfortable, first of all, identifying who they are and what they need, and then being able to communicate it, and then being able to reap the rewards as well as cut some of the losses associated with being true to ourselves.
And when I talk to women, and I love working with women, it's primarily who I work with, I just find that women, I'm speaking in general, we are so used to giving and taking care of everyone and giving. We're depleted. There are so many of us that have adrenal failure. We don't even know it. And so I just urge every single woman who hears this to give yourself white space, as I call it, time and space to just show up and be yourself, to be quiet, to do something, to go somewhere with yourself. You know what? Don't bother putting makeup on. Don't dress up for anyone. I'll just tell you, when I'm on vacation, I just wear whatever Terri's comfortable in, right? I don't bother with anything. And I really want that for every single person, to just be so comfortable with yourself and who you are. Look yourself in the mirror and see your beauty. We don't look at our beauty. Most women, 80% of women, when they look in the mirror, see their faults.
Absolutely.
So embrace your beauty when you're by yourself. Embrace who you are, your God-given talents, or whatever you call your higher power, and get to know you, because I guarantee you're a really awesome person to get to know.
Well, and when you think of what you've shared thus far, we're not talking about these extensive or expensive types of trips, and these little jaunts of even picking a city 2 hours away and go to a coffee shop for a couple hours in an afternoon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I went with, maybe a month ago, I went to a wine country that's not real far away here up from my home. Maybe it was a 90-minute ride. And I said, I'm just going to go to a bunch of wineries. And I've never gone to a winery without my husband. My husband's like a wine connoisseur. So he's like, this is right. No. I went by myself and I'm like, you know what? I want to have the red before the white. And that's what I'm going to do. I broke the rules. It was so much fun. And I, stopped on the side of the road. I bought some grapes. I was eating. It was just so nice. And it was not an extensive anything. It was a 90-minute drive. I must have been there for maybe only 2 hours. And then I drove back the 90 minutes. Just that intermission and that time away, I rekindled so much and really got to make some clear decisions and came back really excited. My husband didn't know where I was for the day. I thought it was just another day at work. And that night we were at dinner and he said, you just seem like really exuberant. And I'm like, really? Do I? And it wasn't the wine.
I love it. And these are some of the messages that I really want people to hear, because so many American midlife women feel that solo travel is for people who don't have significant others, who don't have friends that want to travel with them. And it's not. Those are important types of travel, and they're necessary and relevant. But this is a different type of travel, and it's all about you. And taking time, when you say it's a me day and you just go shopping, it's okay, but you're still inundated by so many other senses. Taking quiet time for you, in whatever that quiet time means, is really important, and it doesn't have to be something over the top. You could do it tomorrow, like Terri just shared.
And I just thought of something as you were speaking. My dad had been away on business trips most of my life, but had never been on a personal trip, right? And so my mom died and had been gone for about 5 years. My dad was still relatively young, and my dad had always wanted to go on the Queen Mary and sail, right? And I said, Dad, do it. And he's like, I don't know about going by myself. I said, do it. And sadly, he came home and he said it was the worst trip of his life. And I said, why? And it was because he never even went away for an hour or two on his own. That wasn't business. He wasn't
ready.
See? And so I always said to myself, I want people to always be ready. I don't care what age they are. We have to get comfortable with ourselves, being ready and taking time on our own, because all we have and all we know that we have is our birthdays, our check-in days, right? We don't know our check-out date. It's not stamped on our foot, right? So I want you to really enjoy each and every moment of your life, and don't say, I'm going to do this in 5 years or 20 years. Do it today. Go on some little trip, plan it. Now I say, Jennifer, get out a calendar and plan a little excursion for next week. Go somewhere and be by yourself. If you never went to a movie by yourself, go there. Go to a restaurant. Go to a really cool museum, whatever. Just, if you need to start small, start small. And when you do finally go and you do some travel by yourself, take a journal and really take notice of your experience. It's so enriching.
Absolutely. Preach it, sister. That's what I want to say.
I can't help it.
The reality is that, part of this is about practicing, and it's practicing being on your own, and it's practicing being with yourself. And I think they're a little bit different things. So if you were to jump both feet in and say, I'm going to go do my whole eat, pray, love journey and take a year off and go try that, you might be okay. But having taken some initial baby steps and gotten comfortable with going alone and being with yourself makes an entirely different experience. And that's why I've launched the Go Solo Live challenges, because they're weekend-long experiences. They're baby steps into the solo travel. They're alone, but they're solo, but not alone. They're in a community of support where you still get to go do something alone and know that you're not completely by yourself. So it's the premise that we're talking about right here, is that you can do this stuff in your own backyard, but maybe people aren't really ready to take the full leap yet. So we're going to give them some support to do that.
I love that you have that weekend and the community support in the weekend. And, I have to say, as I heard that, I really resonates, because I know a lot of women that would look at me and say, I just am not ready. I can't do that. Okay, this is such a great step. I think it's so important. And I honor what you're doing. I think it's really valuable. And I really encourage women from my heart to go do this, because I know that it will build their confidence. It will build their self-esteem. It'll let them get more in touch with their inner voice, their passions, and they will get more out of each moment in their life when they're more connected to who they are.
Absolutely. We all are about trying to move the needle. We're not trying to go from one extreme to the other. We're just about trying to make progress. And that focuses on so many parts in our lives. So there's different ways that we can do that for sure. Terri, any closing words of wisdom to encourage women to consider solo travel?
Yeah, my final thought is this. If you don't do this, you're going to always ask yourself, what if I did? You're always going to ask yourself that question. What if I did? I wonder what it would have been like. I wonder what it will be like. So don't spend your life going, what if? Do whatever you can to push through the fear, because all that it is, if you're not doing it or you're going, oh, I could never do it, it's some kind of a fear. And it's okay to have fear. So when you have fear, you want to take a baby step to move forward. And being away with a supportive community for a weekend, to me, is a brilliant baby step. So push through the fear. I'm not saying feel the fear and do it anyway. I'm saying say to the fear, I hear you. I got this. And take one step forward.
Absolutely. So Terri has some amazing business things going on that I'd like you to share. And I just want people to be able to figure out how they can connect with you, follow you, and really get to know more about you in the work that you're doing in the world.
Well, thanks. What I've been doing for, a couple of decades, and what I love to do is I work with coaches, consultants, authors, trainers, and speakers. Those are the people that I love to help. And I actually share with them an automated marketing system. I help them put it in place in their business. They can stop content marketing. You don't have to do any blogging. You don't have to do any podcasting. You don't have to write books. You don't have to do social media posts, YouTube. Stop everything. You do one thing. It's automated. It works like clockwork, and it brings you hot prospects raising their hand ready to work with you. And then we create your signature program for at least $3,000 per person. So I take you to 6 figures if you're not there. If you're at 6, I show you how to get to 7. That's what I love to do. I am also an international best-selling author, and I'm also a keynote speaker, and I have a ton of free resources. So my website is heartrepreneur.com. So it's got the word preneur in it, like entrepreneur, heartrepreneur.com, or you can just do terrilevine.com. Either way, you get to the same place and take advantage of the resources. I'm here on this planet to help and serve. So if I can share a resource, that's what I'm here to do.
Wonderful. And you'll be able to find all of those links in our show notes. So you can find Terri, follow her, and hopefully even hear more about future solo travels.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks again for being with us today, Terri.
Thanks, Jennifer.